Why is it that we're still obsessed with the performance of the individual in our modern team-based organizations? Shouldn't we measure and compare teams instead? Maybe a provocative thought, but that's the topic for today's guest talk. Sandy Mamoli is a renowned Agile coach and popular keynote speaker. When living in New Zealand, I had the luxury of working with her and her colleagues at Nomadate. Sandy is also the author of the great book Creating Great Teams, How Self-Selection Lets People Excel, which she co-wrote with David Moe. A great step-by-step guide on how to facilitate a Scodification event. If you enjoyed this video, perhaps you can consider giving it a like, or maybe even to subscribe. Sandy, the screen is yours.
Hello, my name's Sandy Mamoli, and I believe we're putting way too much focus on people's individual performance at work. And I'm going to talk about why that's a problem and what I think that we can do instead. But first I want to tell you about myself and how I came to that conclusion and why I believe I can talk about this. And I think I can talk about this because I have a background in professional sports. I used to be a pretty good handball player. I played professional for Austria. I won the European Champions League twice and represented Austria in the 1992 Olympics. And if you're outside the European Union and don't know what handball is it's a really fast-paced team sports, and basically think water polo on land, and second biggest sports in Europe. It's a fun thing to do. 3 years ago, I started doing CrossFit, and CrossFit is, of course, it's a cult, but it's also a mix of high-intensity interval training, gymnastics, weightlifting, and is there to promote general fitness. And people compete to find out who's the fittest and most versatile. I also work for a company called Nomadate that I co-founded about 15 years ago, and we do Agile coaching and training and basically sprinkle Agile magic onto organizations. And I'm saying this because I get around a lot. And over the last 3 years, I've worked with about 25 companies, and I have observed parallels between handball and CrossFit and companies. And what I've noticed in companies is that work is a team sport. And there are decades of research and literature out there showing that work nowadays is being done in teams. And all the advent of new ways of working and the advent of Agile all have teams at heart. When we're talking about the modern networked organization, it's a network of teams we're talking about. So work's a team of effort, and we know that. But we are obsessed with individual performance. There's something really weird going on. We're like a dog to a bone, totally obsessed with individual performance. Our incentives, our bonus systems, our reward structures, performance reviews, and development plans, they're all geared towards the individual. So we're working in teams, but we're still doing all those things. So let me invite you to the world of sports. And handball is obviously a team sport. I can't achieve anything on my own. I can't even play on my own. We succeed and we fail together. CrossFit, on the other hand, is an individual sport. I'm on my own, I win by myself and I lose by myself. I'm basically a one-man team where I need to cover all the bases and have no gaps as an athlete. And that was kind of a revelation to me at the time, because I realized at work, in our workplaces, the problem is that we treat people like individual athletes in something that's a team sport. And that mismatch gives a lot of friction and tension. So let me talk about the differences a bit. So what's going on here is, let me start with CrossFit. In CrossFit, we measure absolutely everything. We can measure performance. We can measure number of repetitions, time, number of rounds, and so on. We can just measure stuff. And because we're a one-man team, we need to be an all-round athlete and cover absolutely everything. I realized at my first CrossFit competition, when I realized I had some really strong sides. I can jump, but I had huge weaknesses in gymnastics, and my strengths weren't actually that helpful to pull me up. What I needed was to be a fully rounded athlete And it's way better to be average or just good at everything than having huge strengths and gaps. So in order to be an athlete with no gaps, for my personal development, I need to focus 80% on my weaknesses and killing them and 20% on my strengths. By the way, I check, this is also true for world-class athletes in CrossFit. Now, contrast this with handball. As a team sport, what we need to optimize is team performance. We don't need the development plans to focus on individuals. We need them to focus on teams. And I think that individual performance on teams is actually irrelevant. As I said, you can't even play on your own. It's all about the team. And yes, individual performance matters, but only in a sense as it is a contribution that the person makes to the overall goal, and not the individual performance that counts in itself. What we need to do, instead of looking at individual performance, we need to look at gaps in team competency, not individual performance. And I really want to hammer that point home, that individual performance is only relevant in how it contributes to team performance. Each player contributes to team performance with their individual strengths, and the combination of the players creates a winning formula. So in team sports, we really need to focus on eliminating weaknesses. So as a former world-class handball player, forget about being all-rounded. Have a few skills that you're absolutely world-class at. My weaknesses, someone else will cover them. Work on something that I'm really good at. Be even better at jumping. Forget about my standing throw. My shoulders are way too weak for that. And the other issue is, in a team sport, how do we actually measure? In a team sport, you can't. I can't look at the handball game and go, 30 goals are great, 20 are not. It depends in a way on whether you win or lose, or if you're playing well or not. And it changes with the context. It changes with the opponent, whether it's a home and away game. It's way more complex than CrossFit. So how do you know where you stand? You know that by comparing yourselves against other teams. Either you play against them or you just watch them and you see what excellent looks like. You can see what's possible and what world-class looks like. And still, to me, it is very clear that work is so much more like handball than CrossFit. But we keep forgetting that. And I really want to reiterate that all work is a team sport. Even if you're a CEO or a manager and most of your days you're spent by yourself, unless you're a one-man company, it really is a team sport. So the problem that I find we have is that we measure and assess and evaluate and improve performance in a way that's obsolete. It's no longer relevant in the modern workplace, and we need to change that. But, so what is it we do instead? And I want to do what we do in team sports, compare teams. As an Agile coach, I can see most of my colleagues doing exactly this phase. Because it's a big no in the Agile world. What about psychological safety? This is just not a good idea. But I really think it is. Because I'm saying compare, not compete. I'm not saying smash them. I'm not saying be depressed if you're not as good as other teams. It's go out and find out where you stand and find out what excellent really looks like and what you can improve. And it's actually even easier at work than in the team sports because there's no winners and losers. It's not a zero-sum game. You don't have to lose for me to win. So what I'm saying is go out and see. Go out, meet other teams, compare and learn. So go and visit other companies in person or remote. Visit other teams within your company. It's something I've seen being done way too little. At my current client, we have a lean coffee a week with a different company where people just get inspiration for what great and not so great could look like. People can compare themselves as a team and make a list of things they want to learn. And once you've done that, go and assess yourself as a team and visualize this by making a development plan. And I want to give a little shout out to my favorite client ever, Snapper, who work with this. And Snapper and other companies that I've worked with now assess team strengths and weaknesses with 4 quadrants. I visualize this along 2 axes, and one is the confidence to execute, and the other one is, are you currently demonstrating a skill as a team? The corner you want to be in, your strengths, are you're demonstrating it and you have the confidence. You do this on a regular basis and you know you're good at it. You might be demonstrating it, but you don't have the confidence. So maybe you're not doing it often enough, or you have a little bit of a problem feeling insecure as a team. If you're not demonstrating it and have no confidence, it's probably something you should learn as a team. There's a gap. And if you have the confidence but are not demonstrating it, sometimes you're just hubris. It's hubris. You think you're nailing it, but you're not. So practically, what I've done with this is have a team make a list of skills that they need. And those are both hard skills like coding skills or design skills, but also collaboration skills. Once they have this list, they can assess themselves and figure out what they need to do in order to improve. And that's what I've thought that comparison helps with so much, because you don't want to end up in the corner where you think you're nailing it, but you're not. It's just because you don't know what good looks like. Or you might be really, really good, but you just don't know it. So I found assessing yourself as a team super useful, because what you can do with this is to then develop people to fill the gaps. You don't have to have an individual development plan thinking about what does Jimmy need to learn. We're interested in what Jimmy needs to learn in order to be super valuable to the team. And sometimes, or mostly, when we find gaps, what we do is decide what to do about them. We have a conversation as a team. Do we hire from the outside? Or mostly, who wants to learn this? Whose strength would it be to develop further and pick up a new skill or dig deeper into something? So basically, go for the gaps and then decide who, maybe more than one person, should teach themselves a new skill. And let me just also emphasize that that means weaknesses are not opportunities for improvement. Weaknesses in team sports are a sign that something should be done by someone else and supplemented by the rest of the team. Play to the strength, the things that you already know you find really interesting, things that you know you want to learn. That's a strength. Focus on those. Other things, there'll be someone else who's interested in that other skill. So what I think we need to do as organizations is, first of all, define and enforce a base level threshold. We need the right people to be in our organizations to be part of a system like this. And that means there's some core skills and behaviors that are foundational for anyone in the workplace. Pretty much like if you can't catch and throw a ball, or you don't have any team skills, you won't even be allowed on the practice field. So let's make sure that there's a base level of collaboration and learning skills. Teach people and organizations how to work in teams. It's a skill, and don't accept individual athletes. I know a lot of individual athletes hate being dependent on teams. They hate being dependent on other people. But I'm sorry, let me bring it to you. It doesn't work in the workplace. So you either develop team skills or we don't want you. not even on the playing field. And the last one is compare and develop teams, not individuals. And that's all I have to say about this for now.
Thank you, Sandy, for taking the time to be on the show and doing this talk. I found it brilliant. Oh, it was so long time since I were to New Zealand, but yeah, I'm longing to go back soon.
New Zealand is still missing you.
Thank you. I have a few questions prepared here. The first one, so you showed this really great self-assessment tool and to evaluate strength and what you can work on, and as a baseline for a development plan for the team. I love that concept as well. But how could such a development plan look like in practice? So what's the tangible output?
Yes. It's really funny that you asked that question, because I just wrote down a facilitation plan for people who want to do this. And just in a nutshell, how it works is that as a first step, I stole a part of a workshop that you made, Yury, which is just looking at teams, what makes a great team, both from the outside, how do you know a team's great, and also from under the hood, if you're part of a great team, how do you know it's a great team? Just make a list of that in the first 1 hour workshop. And then schedule 2 lean coffees or company visits, one internally within your own company, watch another team that you have heard is awesome, and find another company, go visit them or have a lean coffee. So just to collect input of what's possible and what a great team could look like. And then as a third step, identify the things that you think are important for your team. Get together, run a workshop, and use that self-assessment tool to place your skills and traits on the matrix to find the gaps and the strengths. And then find the gaps and have a discussion around, okay, how could we fill this? And not just how could one person fill this, but as a team, what should happen? And it doesn't mean that one person needs to develop the skill. It means that we can even distribute this. Brilliant, thanks.
And we'll put the link to this to the article you refer to in the description of this YouTube video, of course. Right?
Perfect. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yes.
Yeah,
next one. You talked about let's compare, and one thing we can compare is, of course, the self-assessment we do, and maybe to figure out which teams to learn from. But are there any hard metrics? Well, anyone working Agile knows that it's you shouldn't and you can't compare user stories or velocity or anything like that, because it doesn't make sense, even if some people try to. But can you think of any kind of hard metrics like that is comparable between teams?
Absolutely not. And I think that's where it exactly is like a team sport, like handball, because is 20 goals good or bad? Context dependent. We don't know. How many passes have you had? How many how many dribblings?
Yeah.
We can't have a number. We can't compare, know what's good or bad.
But we do get tested, right? So when we do play a game in a tournament or anything, we are tested. How good are we compared with others? We never become tested like that at the workplace.
Yes, which is unfortunate, actually. It'd be great to do that and know where you stand. We can't. So it's all qualitative. And I think part of it is also learning how to see. Like if you need to be at a certain level to recognize excellence. Yeah. And the more you develop as a team, the more you will be able to see what you're still missing.
Also true. Then you introduced the idea of having a base level threshold. There's a few things you should be able to do this or behave like that. Otherwise, you're probably not a good fit for our culture and company. But if let's pretend you're doing the interview and you have 3 tick boxes to tick in. What would you look for? What would be your minimum level baseline threshold thingies?
Oh, that's such a great question. I should probably go back and think about actual interview questions. But things I would look for is that is someone putting the we above the I. I would look for, is someone curious, willing, and happy to learn and to improve and to change and do whatever is necessary to succeed as a group or as a team rather than just on their own. And there's a number of skills that are necessary. Like personally, I call them actually grown-up skills, like having a real conversation, being able to deal with conflict, constructive conflict, moving forwards, and taking and giving feedback in a way that is constructive and inspiring and propels you forward. So basically forget your ego and grow up.
Good list. You're free to copy that, of course, if you viewers. And the fourth one. You mentioned if you're an individual athlete, we probably don't want you here, kind of. But many companies do agile transformations and they rethink their values and come to realize that, wait a second, these kind of behaviors, being individualistic, or as I sometimes call it, being a bottleneck hero, have those around.
You do.
So what do you do? How do you cope or mitigate or work with that?
I think everyone deserves a fair chance. And some of those people in companies who are individual athletes, and there's nothing bad about being an individual athlete, you're just in the wrong place in a team sport, but it's not what they signed up to do. So I think they deserve a chance to decide, do they want to give this a shot? Do they want to learn how to be a team player? And if yes, cool, we can develop it. It's like coaching a Lilliput team. If after a while there is no willingness or ability to learn, then I think we need to get rid of that person. And like in a team sport, you won't get selected. You won't make the team.
Yeah. That's one of my litmus tests. Is it called that in English? Yeah. For kind of startups or even companies doing transformations, time to first fire. So how long does it take for them to build up the courage to actually make the really, really tough decision of saying, no, you're great, but not here?
Yes. Yep.
That's a tough one. Okay.
Yes. But what I find fascinating there too is that people always use employment law as an excuse. Everyone say, oh, well, by law we can't. But they also don't have the robust conversations, because you can talk to someone about not being a good fit. And usually if they want to be an individual athlete, they don't want to work here anymore anyway. So we can just talk like adults.
Yes. Oh, I had a great time here and I loved your talk, and I hope you viewers will too, or that you loved it. You've already watched it. So take care, yes. Sandy. So nice to see you again.
Yes, super cool to see you. And hey, thanks so much for having me in that video.
Oh, I'm going to say thank you. I'm going to have a great evening. You're going to have a great day, because totally opposite time zones.
Getting started. Yep.
Take care. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye. See you.
See you.
What's your thoughts? Are we obsessed with individual performance? And should we shift to measure and compare teams instead? Please share your thoughts in the comments. And once again, thank you, my amazing Patreons. If you too want to join our Patreon exclusive meetups, which are great fun, please consider becoming a Patreon. And lastly, as mentioned in the Q&A, you can find a link to the facilitation guide Sandy referred to in the description below. Until next time, explore, have fun, and be safe.